teaching collaboration, is it will be more popular during the COVID-19, or maybe some universities has already came up with something new, and all that stuff we are going to discuss. So today we have amazing 5 main speakers from different universities. Let me briefly introduce. We have 2 main speakers from University of Cambridge. This is Professor Saxena and Professor Maurits. And also we have 2 professors from Webster University in Tashkent. This is Professor Gordana Pasekovic and Dr. Riordan. I hope, sorry if I misspelling your names. And last but not least, we have Professor Ulkir Setarova. She's she's a teacher. Sorry, she's vice rector of Azerbaijan University of Architecture and Construction. So our meeting will be divided into parts. So for the first one is going to be introduction of main speakers. They will introduce themselves. They will talk about the topic, and then we have Q&A questions, which is you may write your questions, or if you want to discuss and bring up something new about the topic in the chat box, or just wave if you have a video, and then we will definitely get back to you. So yeah, and also I would like to say that each speech is kind of limited, so it's 5-10 minutes. So we want to hear as many opinions and views as much. So we have limited time, so please bear in mind this with this one. So yeah, today's meeting is organized by OCA Magazine. OCA Magazine is the only independent English language magazine published in London with support of Eurasian Creative Guild. The magazine is aimed at English-speaking audience and those who are interested in countries of Central Asia. So OCA Magazine promotes the articles and the interviews about politics, economy, events, tourism, activity, business, and so on. So if by any chance some of you are interested in Central Asia and anything that is related to the topics I said above, so please in chat box there is an official website and email. So please feel free to contact me anytime. And if you want to contribute and submit your articles, I'll be happy to help you. So without further ado, we have also a short video that speaks much more highly than me. Please, Tatiana, could you please turn off the video, short video introduction of OCA Magazine. I came across OCA Magazine when I was a student, and I was wondering what this OCA stands for, which is Open Central Asia. Later on, I was lucky enough to write an article about Marc Chagall's art. OCA Magazine is a unique magazine which brings cultures together. This is the main purpose.
I've known Murat and the Open Central Asia magazine pretty much since the beginning, and would highly recommend it to anyone, not only the seasoned traveller, but also perhaps the complete beginner. It's a magnificent combination of business, culture and social articles, which really bring to life this amazingly vibrant and rich part of the world.
Open Central Asia magazine was founded over 10 years ago now, just after the end of the last financial crisis. And now, as we sit here today in a new era of uncertainty and turmoil, I remember back to what people said to us in 2009. They thought we were crazy. Why did the world need to see anything from Central Asia when we were so busy battling with our own lives and recovering from the financial crisis? But in fact, there had never been a better time to bring out such a magazine that would bring to the fore the relevance of Central Asia today for people both from Central Asia in Europe and those in Europe who might be interested in going to or transacting with Central Asian from a business perspective. So we've always been keen to bring the opinions, issues, news, events, cultures and traditions from Central Asia and now even the Eurasian region as well.
Thank you so much, Tatiana, for your help. I would like to also introduce our main publisher of the OCA magazine, Marat Ahmedjanov. Can you hear us? Maybe you would like to add something?
Yes. First of all, I would like to welcome everyone for our today meeting and thank you for your time. I also would like to pass the best greetings from our editor-in-chief, Nick Rowan. Unfortunately, he is not able to join us today, but I'm sure we'll have a great meeting. The Open Central Asia magazine, as you've seen from the video, was created 11 years ago with a purpose to build the land bridge between Eurasia and the Western world. And surprisingly, our readership grown much far behind just UK and Central Asia. We've got subscribers in White House and MFA of Japan, Iran, the dozens of universities, over 50 members of British Parliament are subscribing to our magazine, which is just proof that the interest in Central Asia and Eurasia is growing, and the region and relations cannot be ignored anymore. And what we're going to talk today on education sector is one of the important ways of interacting and promoting knowledge and the culture between the different regions of the world. So I would like once again welcome everyone and pass the floor to Bajana, who will be moderating our meeting today.
Thank you so much.
Please.
Yes, thanks so much. Without further ado, I think we should just jump into our topic today. So the first speaker, main speaker, this is Professor Saxena. Can you hear us, please?
There you go. I can hear you indeed.
Yes, that's perfect.
Thank you. Can I share my screen with you as I get started here? There you go. All right. First of all, I'm really delighted to be taking part in this event, even though we are talking about pandemic and negative vibes on one side, but nevertheless, the OCA magazine has been a part of our own program with help of Marat from the very beginning, and we have hosted many events of theirs in Cambridge. Well, I was already asked before, so this is Cambridge in UK we're talking about. In terms of our discussion today, I would like to launch into it since we have not that much time. So I've titled my presentation Science Challenges in Institutional Cooperation, because I'm coming from a very specific perspective of leading a research initiative and our university's research engagement and that of our centers in the region. And that's what I would endeavor today to tell you a little bit about what we do, and that will also explain the challenges we face and opportunities we might have to go forward. So it's a less student directly led perspective. It's sort of more to do with institution and institutional framework. So my name is Untitled Chapter. Most people know me as Montu. I see many friends already logging in, so hello to everyone. So I directed something called Cambridge Central Asia Forum, but I also work as a physicist at Cavendish Laboratory, and both of these things have a interplay in what I have to say today to some extent. So firstly, the Cambridge Central Asia Forum, you can find a little bit more about it on the website there. But in short, it's a research group in Cambridge University, which works across different faculties, different initiatives. And our main goal is to get interests of best minds, best academic minds to take interest in Central Asia. So in a similar way, how Murat is trying to get, and Nick is trying to get everyone to take interest in Central Asia, so are we. We are a bit more specific within the framework of a university, but we also look at bilateral academic relationships with the region. And that obviously is where many interesting sort of both opportunity challenges arise. Here's a small map of how our universities and our specifically Central Asia Forum's activities are spread across the region. So when we look at our activities, our perspectives, we look at the region as a whole. Obviously, some countries take, say, more interest at any particular given time, depending on what's happening. And what we do in these countries. So here's a small sample of kind of projects. These projects are both led by researchers or research groups, and they are done. All of them are done together with institutions and colleagues and communities in Central Asia and the Caucasus. And they range from looking at manuscripts, ancient manuscripts. They look at how the communities work. They look at things like earthquake security or industrial development in the region. And by saying all of these things, what I'm building up is that our connectivity, our interaction, our travel to the region and hosting colleagues from the region are kind of a key part of the activity. And that obviously, now at the moment is being challenged in many ways. We also got involved in our own academic publishing activities, which in a way form a kind of opportunity at the moment. So we teach, as I've already alluded to, we have a master's level and a PhD level program focused on Central Asia. A number of our students actually logged in at the moment, participating in this meeting as well. And we host researchers from across the region. And one of the centerpiece of our activity, our interaction with the region is a specific program. So UK government funded grant called Compass, which is comprehensive capacity building in Eastern neighborhood and Central Asia. So it's basically connecting Eurasia, Central Asia, and UK and Europe together. Here we are trying to build a number of research capacities across governments, across communities, across student groups on both sides. And it's a program which specifically involves the countries listed here, and is led by University of Kent, but Cambridge is the second main UK partner. But all countries of Eurasia get involved in our meetings and activities. So what happens in these kind of projects? So here is a picture from our workshop held in Bukhara in April 2019. And here we had almost 80 people coming from across those countries listed, but many more gathered together in Bukhara to discuss different forms of research, how research is done. And they were able to form networks, and they were able to form, relationships which can build on knowledge networks and enhance knowledge networks. And this was going to happen this year as well, in 2020, second edition. And unfortunately, pandemic made sure that didn't happen. So in 30 seconds to run over, so key challenges we're facing are research visits and collaborations with communities. Of course, we can continue over Zoom and so on, but they tend to be individual or meetings which can be short term. For example, if we had this meeting, today's meeting in person, we would probably break out into groups and have more intensive discussions, maybe have a meal together and build to take things further, which cannot happen easily, which is a main part of academic activity research network. We're facing a great challenge in terms of our PhD students and postdoctoral researchers who cannot travel to the region, or one from the region cannot come to us. And this causes a big problem in terms of not only knowledge networks, but practical things. So people's funding will run out before they can complete their work. They cannot engage in the region. And this is, eventually, you try to rush something or do something part, it impacts the research rigor. And that is an important, it will have a long-term effect on how we do research and how our knowledge is produced and papers are written and things like that. And in technical areas, when we do experimental work together, which we cannot do at all at the moment. This impacts also at the student education level, working in laboratories. You can do online teaching. How would you teach technical subject without working in laboratories? Big problem. So at the same time, we have some interesting opportunities. We have new stakeholders whom we can engage with, who normally wouldn't have gone to Central Asia, or Central Asians who would not have been able to join our events, but are able to digitally, and it builds a new wider participation framework. We have more time for capacity building. We can look at stuff that we have already done, write papers, more mentoring, online mentoring can take place. Many of the language issues are mitigated because we can work more closely together. But then there are completely new forms of doing things, and I'll more or less conclude with that. The new forms of relating is what I call. So recently we held this event, online event, where we were able to gather 4 former ambassadors from Uzbekistan, ranging from 1999 to the current ambassador. And they represented a very different era of Central Asia and Uzbekistan, and a very different era of United Kingdom. And their perspectives were very useful for how things were done historically, how things are being done, what changes in trends are taking place, and for students and researchers to be able to hear these people at once. There will be no other way of getting 4 such people in the same place at the same time if you physically wanted to do so. So these kind of opportunities are also fairly valuable. And I hope that as the pandemic passes, these become more blended into how we do things. So with that, I would stop for now. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Professor Saxena. It's been really, really interesting to hear. So I would like to ask you, so you were talking about Central Asia Forum, and you have any new programs. Is it very difficult to gather all students from all over the world facing the time zone?
Yes, that's indeed very much of a challenge. And so, for example, when we organize these events, we have to be very careful about how we time it, when time slot it, because some students are in Australia and others in the United States, and some in Central Asia, while some here in UK. So there will always be such a challenge. However, we will be able to, in many sense, we could repeat more easily some of the sessions, of course, recorded sessions, but that challenge indeed is there. You're absolutely right, to gather people at the same time, different time zones.
Thank you so much. I hope everything will be okay sooner or later.
Thank you.
We will never be always in Zoom. So now I would like to pass the microphone to Professor Ulker Satarova. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Hello.
So please introduce a little bit yourself.
Okay. My name is Ulker Satarova. I'm from Azerbaijan University of Architecture and Construction. And if you let me, I will share my screen. Okay. Okay, can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can see your screen, but not yet your presentation.
Can you see it now?
Not yet.
Can you see it now?
When you are sharing, you have to choose the window. So you might have chosen the window for your file explorer, but you need to choose the window for your presentation maybe.
Okay, actually I choose it. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes, yes,
okay.
we can.
Okay, thank you. I'm Vice Director of Strategy Development, and thank you for inviting me. My presentation will be about some challenges and difficulties because of pandemic situation in all over the world and because of coronavirus. And now we think that this is a second wave in Azerbaijan, and we have our difficulties, and we are not sure if we will be able to have lessons in autumn in normal mode. Okay. The content of presentation will be brief information about Azerbaijan and its education system. At the same time, a brief info about my university, about the difficulties and challenges of virtual education, which we have here, about personal difficulties and university level difficulties. In personal difficulties, I mean more problems of students. At the same time, I will talk about benefits and opportunities, and as everything bad, there is some positive sense here. Okay, let's go. Azerbaijan is located in South Caucasus, bounded by the Caspian Sea, and these countries like Turkey, Russia, and Iran are our nearest neighbors. Education system in Azerbaijan is in school is 11 years long, and it's absolutely free for everyone in 2 languages, Azerbaijan and Russian. And at the same time, all citizens need to finish 9 years, it's obligated. And then we have government exam system, which is centralized and governmental level for admission to universities. In universities, we applied Bolognian system of higher education from 2004 academic year. About my university, it was established like a faculty in 1920, and from 1975 it's independent university. It was the only university at that period of time in this specific area. From 1975 we have more than 9,000 students of all levels, bachelor, master, PhD and postdoc. We have 520 academic staff members, which work in 30 departments. What were our main difficulties? And I think that it's not a unique situation for only our university. It was in almost all universities of the country. Our government university, and we have education in 3 languages, Azerbaijan, Russian, and English. And what were personal difficulties from the student community? It was low speed of internet, especially not in the capital, but in regions. It was high prices for internet connections, and at the same time, it was lack of individual technical equipment, because as you know, we were almost close and all family members were at the same flat, and in some cases there were no computer, or it was only for all family members. What kind of difficulties we had at university level? It was mainly low level of information communication technologies knowledge of academic staff members, especially it was among of elder generation. It was, as in all over the world, it wasn't enough time for us for preparation to such extraordinary case. At the same time, it was lack of common system for virtual and distance level, for distance education. Another side was lack of possibilities for laboratories availability, and I want to stress here that all engineering universities, I think that not only in Azerbaijan, they had additional challenge like to organize laboratory work when you do not need only the tutor or lecturer who will work with you, but you need to do something in laboratory situation. We had some difficulties with education fee, with tuition fee, because students were at home, and at the same time there were a lot of financial problems in families. At the same time, the last one is challenging being able to teach in spite of all these factors and difficulties. What kind of benefits and opportunities we had, and of course, it's efficiency of resources like energy, water, and etc. At the same time, finally, everyone understood that we need to know, we need to apply more digital technologies. We need to be able to work virtually in distance manner, and we need to be able to teach to everyone in such a difficult situation. Generally, of course, I think it's my personal point of view that it gave impulse to modernization of higher education system in most countries and in Azerbaijan for sure. At the same time, people began to use, and even at first steps, it was even WhatsApp groups, but now everyone uses such platforms like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Skype, and etc. Thank you. It was from my side, and thank you for everyone, and warm regards from Azerbaijan.
Thank you so much, Professor Ulker Satara. Thank you so much. I would like to ask you, you mentioned that due to lockdown, you weren't able to teach only theoretical material, not practical. So did you maybe postpone or put it off instead, and you were more focused on theoretical material and education, and then you will get back to practical?
Yes, I think really it's a big challenge to all engineering universities, because you can transfer a tutor by Zoom or any other platform, but you cannot transfer laboratory with full of its equipment, and they cannot receive enough practical skills, and it's really a big challenge, and I think that it's make no matter where it happens. But we are now thinking about autumn, but we again are not sure that we will be back in autumn to universities, and if government will decide that we will not come back to our audience, we again need to postpone these skills. But we plan to make this in autumn, but again we are not sure. We do not know what will be.
Okay, so there is some uncertainty right now, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much. Thanks again. It was very interesting, really. Now I would like to pass, likewise. Now I'd like to pass the microphone to Professor Maurits. He is a Chief Executive, Group Rector, Global University System, and he works at University of Cambridge. Professor, please.
First of all, congratulations on pronouncing my name. Very good. And secondly, small correction. I live near Cambridge. I live 20 minutes outside Cambridge, but I do not work at the University of Cambridge, even though I've in the past taught there as well. But my office is in central London. And my career started at Utrecht University. I'm Dutch, hence the last name Van Rooyen, very Dutch name. My research was on sustainable urbanization, green urbanization. And mid-80s, I moved to the Erasmus University, Rotterdam. And then early 90s, I moved to London, University of Westminster. And I'll come back to that in a moment. And for a number of years, I was both vice president at the University of Westminster and at Leiden University in the late 90s. Bologna, where I helped to set up the English taught master degrees portfolio for 5 years, and then back to Westminster. And then when I retired as Executive Vice President at University of Westminster in London, I became Rector Magnificus and Chief Executive of a Dutch university called Nyenrode University, which is a quite special place. It's a private corporate leadership university located just outside Amsterdam in a beautiful castle. And I had great fun there. But then I met a young man from London who convinced me to come back to London. And we launched 8 years ago the very first university system in the world. I'm not sure whether you're familiar with university systems. It's a bit of an American phenomenon where you have different type of institutions specialized in different areas, all working together. So I convinced him to set up the first global university system, which obviously is in the private sector because you cannot do that in the public sector. And we own and operate now approximately 25 universities, colleges, institutions around the world. We have universities in Canada, Vancouver, Toronto, obviously Europe, and etc. To Singapore. Not yet in Central Asia, but obviously we'll try to do something about that. And we work also in partnerships. So it's not only the universities we own, but we also have some very good close partnerships, including, I'm pleased to say, with Webster University, well represented, I think, at this webinar. And, you know, already more than 10 years, have a very close relationship with Webster University, and Beth and Julian there are great friends of mine, the president and the provost. So I said I would come back to the University of Westminster because whilst I was there, we set up in Tashkent the Westminster International University Tashkent. VIUT, I think you call it in Uzbek language, and that brought me many times to Central Asia, especially Tashkent, but certainly Central Asia. So, hey guys, I miss going out there. It's a wonderful place, and I'm more than happy to promote collaboration with Central Asia because it's a very special place in the world, and are looking forward soon when flights are back to have an opportunity to come back to Tashkent and other places. So here we are virtually. So that's not the same as being in Tashkent with a nice meal and a good glass of a beer or any of the other excellent stuff you serve there. You know, it's obviously kind of second choice, isn't it? And that's, I say that provocatively because I actually do not really completely believe that. I think in terms of quality, of course, it's much nicer to go to a place to be with people and to have quality time together, interact, eat and drink, etc. I fully appreciate that. And that's the same for the students. Going to campus and being able to interact socially and so on is a very important part of education. However, there are also big advantages of these virtual connections, right? Here we are, people around the world being able to connect. I didn't need to go to an airport, take a plane, travel for, you know, 8 hours or something like that. It would have costed me almost a day to get there, then have some time with you guys, and then takes another day to get back again. I can do this virtually, we can talk with each other. That's a big advantage. And that's really what I stress all the time when it comes to virtual learning and so on. Yes, of course, you lose something, and that is that you're not sitting down together and have a chit over a cup of coffee or something else, but it is replaced with a lot of other convenience. And maybe there is, you could say, a quality element, which is maybe a bit less, but in the quantitative terms, actually, it creates a lot of new opportunities. So it isn't really about what is better and what is less good. It's more that both have their own big positives and both have some negatives. And that is really what I think we can pick up from the COVID-19 situation. Of course, an awful situation for people personally, economically, and also in education. It's been a major disruptor. All our 50 or so campuses around the world had to change from one moment to another to virtual learning. They all managed to do that within 24, the slowest, I think, 48 hours. We were totally equipped for that, which is the good news. But obviously, it's a major disruption. And it's also a major disruption for students who come and join on one of our institutions from around the world, not knowing whether they get a flight, student visa, etc. Right? So I fully appreciate that. But the good news is that by so many people embracing virtual learning, we realize that actually, even after COVID-19, some of that we do not want to give up. So when I look at these student surveys at our different institutions, of course, all students say we want to be back on campus, we want to have interaction again. But also, they say actually they really like the convenience of virtual learning as well and give them more flexibility and so on. So we need to find ways of saying we want the best of both worlds. We want to keep the virtual learning as well as opening up the campuses again and offering that opportunity. Including also the online. We have a lot of online learning materials and already something 10+% of our students, and we have something close to 80, 90,000 students are online. And we want to embrace all of that because that's the reality of new education. The new education isn't a binary approach where you're either online or you are face-to-face. That's the old previous century thinking about this. Actually, it is about the spectrum of learning tools, and students should be able to use them whenever they feel comfortable with that, whatever suits their personal circumstances or whatever is happening in the world. And I have introduced, and I wrote an article about this, and I'll share the link in a moment, in World University News, which is an online newsletter. And feel free to publish it in OCA as well. I don't want to promote them. It's not a competitor anyway, it's a free newsletter. But whereby I said it's not a binary world anymore when it comes to education. And I introduced the concept of integrated virtual learning. And integrated virtual learning is really sitting in the middle. It isn't blended or hybrid. We all know that that's the bit in the middle, but it's actually about simultaneous learning, but using also online tools, also being on campus. And students can be on campus and at the same time off campus, joining the same classroom and having the same learning experience. And why is that attractive? Because some students might not be able to come to the campus at a certain moment. They might be uncomfortable coming to a campus at a certain moment. They might not have their visa yet, and they need to join the class because they're going to be late in arriving. And what we're trying to do, I think, at least what I'm proposing and stimulating also within our group, is creating this integrated virtual learning much more as a normal element of learning, whereby students can be off campus and on campus at the same time. And I appreciate you're going to ask me a question about the time zones. I'm a little bit more relaxed about the time zones. I mean, I appreciate when you are living at home or something like that, that can be a challenge. But when I was at the University of Westminster, we decided in central London to open our libraries 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I can promise you, going to the library at 2 o'clock in the morning was a very popular option for our students. You know, students can be quite relaxed about time zones as long as they are seriously motivated and, you know, take advantage of the fact that, yes, it is not nice to go to bed late or something like that. So some students don't mind that so much. But at the same time, you get something really valuable in return. So by and large, I think time zone is a minor element in this, as long as what you offer is sufficiently exciting. So integrated virtual learning is an article which introduces that concept. It also addresses, obviously, that there are some challenges in that, like how do you use labs, how do you do artwork, etc., which refers to things like how can you use things like enhanced learning and virtual reality, etc., better in learning, and that it isn't about binary, that you say we replace labs with virtual reality, but actually you say we use virtual reality to make sure that you spend less time in labs, etc. The same way as when you learn to fly, you use a simulator, but it doesn't replace actually learning to fly in an airplane, but it does reduces the time you have to spend flying an airplane as a learner. And that's really what the article is about. Doing and saying integrated virtual learning is actually a tool which creates new opportunities, and start thinking about universities in a different way. Don't think it in a binary way anymore, but see it more as a spectrum, and how broad can we cover with our education that spectrum. Final point, when it comes to opportunities, when we offer integrated virtual learning, it also means that we can much more easily integrate virtual mobility. I'm a big fan of virtual mobility, because it makes international studies available to many more students than those who can actually afford to take a plane and go and study somewhere else. But at the same time, by having virtual mobility classes, using the integrated virtual learning which takes place somewhere else. So in other words, students, let's say in Central Asia, join a class, let's say at my institution in Germany. I mean, I also happen to be rector of a German university, which is part of the group, where I also have an office in the house. You know, they can join and they can actually study together. It's virtual mobility. Now, obviously, the good news of that is not only that many more can get the international learning experience, but also that it actually stimulates later on in the degree real mobility. So in other words, students, let's say in this case from Germany, who have studied with students in Central Asia, will be much more motivated to actually go to Central Asia and experience the real thing. And also they already know students there, they already have some connections, and the other way around. So I think it is something which doesn't replace, it's not that virtual mobility replaces real mobility, it actually can have a positive interaction with it. And that's really the point I want to get across when it comes to opportunities. Stop thinking in boxes, don't see everything in binary systems, it's either this or it is that, but actually see it much more holistically as a whole spectrum of learning opportunities, and also discover how the various elements can enhance each other, how, for instance, integrated virtual learning can also help in dual degree programs, advanced standing in degrees, etc. There's a whole new world which is opened by using tools in a different way. And I strongly recommend that we embrace that world rather than try to defend and say, well, the only real world way of learning is all the time being on campus. And that's not a criticism on being on campus. It's a wonderful student experience. It's great for personal development, etc. But you know, it is also a limited, for often a limited number of people. It's privileged, etc. So let's embrace all the different modes, all the opportunities, and get this as probably the silver lining, the positive outcome of the COVID-19 crisis. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much, Professor, for such a fantastic insight. And I wonder, you were talking about kind of mix of virtual learning and face-to-face. And you also mentioned that you're running a lot of institutions all over the world. So my question is it this new strategy or method you're going to apply to all your institutions?
Yes, well, this is how you manage universities. Have no illusions when you have universities. It doesn't mean that I click my finger and things happen all over the world, right? So all universities are autonomous when they are degree awarding. They have their own academic communities. So I promote it, but I cannot tell individual professors, certainly in Germany, not in Germany, because hey, that's all written in the constitution, the academic freedom and all that kind of stuff. But having said that, the good news is that most of my colleagues, if not nearly all, actually start discovering exactly the same. And all I do is give a template and say, consider doing it this way, because that helps. And of course, also enabling classrooms technically is an investment we need to do. But there will be some professors who do not like it, and that's it. And I cannot force them to do it, and maybe that's fine as well. Right? And others, they will embrace it, and the classes will become more popular, and they are moving themselves more and more at the the core of higher education. In the end of the day, in education, we know that change takes some time. It's not that a corporate, it's not like in the army where you say this has to happen and people follow the command. I mean, that's not how universities work, and I actually I'm grateful that universities don't work like that, that they are communities of scholars having discussions and being critical and sometimes even skeptical. But what I can see is that we are moving in that direction. I certainly think by giving a template that can help that moving that faster. And this is where, in general, I think we live in a fascinating time where higher education is changing quite dramatically. So on one hand, we have institutions which obviously established themselves over centuries. I see Richard Griffith here in front of me of Leiden University. Well, I can remember when I was at Leiden University, I had my office was the curatorium, and there was an interesting box there, which nice carving. And I, at a certain moment, had a moment, and I wondered what was inside that box. It was parked there in a corner, and I opened it to see what was inside, and it was actually only sealed with a piece of paper, which said this box was put here in 1915 and is not to be opened until 2115. So in other words, stay away from it for 200 years. So I closed the box again and I walked away. And then I realized, isn't that unique for universities, that you can actually park a box somewhere and know that it will still be there in 200 years time and nobody will have to, will look inside. It's only universities and churches which actually can do that for you. So I like that continuity, and that's a strength of education. But at the same time, my entire career over the last 30 plus years, actually that's 40 plus years now, is dedicated to the fact that globalization is reality. We can be against it or in favor, that doesn't make any difference. Globalization is a reality. And universities should not fight it, but on the contrary, should positively engage with globalization, have a positive impact on globalization. Higher education is not immune to globalization. It should actually lead it. And that's the thinking behind global university systems, which is really embracing globalization and make sure that higher education plays a prominent role in globalization rather than trying to exclude it. And virtual learning, online learning, etc., but especially virtual learning, is a powerful tool in that globalization process of higher education. A lot of professors understand that, embrace that, and of course you also got some professors who will say, no, in the past everything was better, and I just want to stand in front of my students and I want to teach them, and they have to listen to me, and all the mobile phones should be switched off, and nobody is allowed to take an iPad or a computer into the classroom. You will keep that for some time being, but I can promise you, come back in 5 or 10 years, and those will probably have retired. There's absolutely nothing wrong with having an iPad or a phone or computer in a classroom. On the contrary, with integrated virtual learning, it's obliged to have that. Otherwise, you cannot be a full part of the learning process. Times are changing.
Thank you so much. I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much. It's been really wonderful to hear your opinion.
Thank you.
Now I would like to pass the microphone to Professor Gordana Pesakovic from Webster University in Tashkent. Please, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Well, I want to actually say hello to everyone from Webster University in Tashkent. This is the first American university in Central Asia. And all of us who are in one way or another associated with university in Central Asia, we are so pleased to be where we are in Tashkent, in Uzbekistan, because the hospitality of the people, the positive interaction with the colleagues, with the government, with everybody who is engaged in educational process has been rewarded for all of us. And on a personal level, I'm very, very happy with my students and with their engagement. And I have been teaching for more than 20 years. predominantly in United States, but I have been teaching and I'm starting from east going west in Taiwan, in Thailand, in China, in Kyrgyzstan, in Uzbekistan, in Russia, in Serbia, in Czech Republic, in France, in Canada, United States, Argentina, and Chile. And nowhere I have seen so many young people so enthusiastic and so eager to start their own business. So you can just feel that energy in the city, in the country, that especially young people, but as we all say, people of all ages are excited about the new developments that are happening in the country. And Webster University is really, really pleased to be one of those educational entities that is helping in that development. During this COVID, we have organized a number of actually webinars, and one of them was similar like you are organizing it today. We organized a webinar that was about distance learning. And I am pleased to say that actually all universities in Uzbekistan were present at that webinar, and we had really, really such a great exchange of ideas and possibilities for new cooperation. So I want to share that with you. We also have something that is called Webster Talk, and that is envisioned to be happening once a month, where we will be inviting experts from university, but not only from Webster University, from the community. And since we are very pleased to have our faculty that are partially from United States and from other institutions, from other countries, but also partially from Uzbekistan, we actually have in one of our very, very first Webster Talk, a former Minister of Foreign Affairs and ambassador of Uzbekistan. And he actually gave his excellent presentation, and that was before COVID. So we have a full auditorium of participants and students who were very, very excited to be part of that. Just a few weeks ago, we got one very important grant that is dedicated to support our educational institution, in the sense that we'll be offering special English classes for the community. On that level, I also would like to say that we are just now launching our new MBA program with a very, very unique focus, and that is like value creation focus of our MBA program. So we are very excited about that initiative and that program. So we are already having our students in undergraduate programs, in master program, MBA program, as well as TESOL, teaching English as a second language, and we are expanding. It's one of those rare moments in your life when you are part of history in making, and it's almost like every day when you go to work, and even now when we are not going on campus per se, but we are meeting through Zoom, just seeing that enthusiasm and the growth that is happening in the country, but also with Webster University, who, as you know, has actually its campuses on 4 different continents. And therefore, we also offer for all the students who are enrolled in our programs opportunities to spend 1 semester or maybe even 2 semesters, depending on their program of studies, in some of our, in 1 or maybe even 2 different campuses that we have in those 4 continents. I was teaching yesterday MBA class, and I told them that I will be presenting today at this conference. So I actually invited them to give me their comments about their experiences, what works, what doesn't work. And it's always good to combine those experiences, how the students feel, how the faculty feels, as well as how administration feels. So I'm going to share with you some of their really, really amazing points that they made yesterday. So obviously there are those who are saying there are positive things and there are those who are saying there are negative things. So there is always some kind of balance of that experiences. And a colleague from Azerbaijan, she already mentioned that internet connectivity is a big, big issue. And that is the same big issue in Uzbekistan because internet is not readily available, and as you also have indicated, it can cost a little bit more. So that's a very, very serious issue. But on the positive side, they said that actually we like it. And I said, well, so why do you like it? Well, because we really save a lot of time in traveling. And for all of you who had actually this opportunity and privilege to be in Tashkent, we all have noticed that the traffic sometimes can be a real traffic jam. Maybe not as in Bangkok, but definitely as in New York, for example. And if you have your, let's say, MBA classes after your office hours, then you can spend an hour in a traffic jam. So they all indicated, and also undergraduate students also said, we are saving a lot of time because we don't need to commute. And on a little bit that side that we all like maybe sometimes to sleep longer. So especially undergraduate students, they said, we really appreciate that we can just wake up and then take our class in 5 minutes. So that would be a positive thing. They also said that in general, their satisfaction with the online experience really depends on the classes. So they said some classes are more appropriate to be offered online, and also some classes may have some challenges to be offered completely online. They also said that on our side, on faculty side, it also depends on the faculty. And they indicated even that, you know, the faculty needs to be some kind of an actor to change their voice and just to keep everybody on alert and to be awake if you want. So those were like their comments on that end. What else did they say? It's really, this is where culture plays really a big role. We are having all our programs, undergraduate and graduate programs are now offered with live sessions. So we have pretty much same time frame as we will be having on campus. But on that note, where they said because it's online, they're a little bit more hesitant to ask questions when they don't understand something. And I asked them, like, why will you not ask questions? And they said, well, because we don't want to interrupt a presentation of the professor, and we also don't want to be the only one who is interrupting our other peers of listening. Maybe they got it, and maybe I'm the one who is not getting it. But on the other level, they also indicated, and it says, so how is this different than when you're taking on ground class? And they said it is different because we have eye contact. And that way, that means that, of course, the professor can see, you know, based on their face expressions, facial expressions, if they're getting it, not getting it, and all of that. So even without students asking the questions, we can actually see that they're not getting it. So we will explain that a little bit more. But this is what I want to really emphasize, that probably really, as the previous participant said, you know, this is really something new. And this is something that can give us so much new learning experiences, but more than that. So this is what the students said. I actually prefer online classes. Why do they prefer online classes? And of course, I'm not saying everybody, but they said, when we are meeting on ground, we are having all our peers around us, and if we don't understand something, we can directly talk to the professor and so forth. We can also talk in the groups after the class, during the lunchtime, and maybe somebody else will explain to us, maybe somebody else from the group will explain the concept that they didn't understand. However, they said online education empower us. Why? Because they start researching, they start doing their own research. And they said, this is actually boosting our self-confidence because we understand, we realize we can do it. We can do it. We can find the solutions on our own. And I personally think that that's really, really big advantage of online education. And in addition to that, it's also when we are having regular classes on campus, and we always have some students that are always active. They're always raising their hand. They're always having, most of the time, substantive comments and questions. But we have other group of students that are a little bit shy. And they also have something to say, but they're a little bit reluctant. And maybe they think, oh, maybe my English is not the best or something like that. Well, online education really is a forum where we can hear so many more voices, so many more perspectives, and again, empower students that initially were feeling shy, if you want, but at the same time, open everybody else to so many other views, points of views, and in a certain way, we can learn about each other even more, because in those exchanges, in those discussions that we have online, they're learning, they're reading, and they're very often commenting on each other posts like, wow, I really was never thinking about that. Thank you for this source. This really was really interesting and really rewarding. In general terms, since we talk about this COVID, and since I've been in, as I said, higher education more than 20 years, and from the very beginning, part of my engagement was also distance education. So I'm proud to say that I was one of those pioneers. And we all know that who were in one way or another involved in distance education, in online classes and so forth, that there was a big resistance of recognizing the quality, the opportunity of online education. So I will call actually this COVID-19 a big bang for higher education in particular, because it really, in a very fast mode, made all of us, believers and non-believers of different forms of education, ready or maybe not ready, but we embrace it and we all became the active participants of this term is not popular, but nevertheless I'm going to use it, of this really educational revolution. And what is amazing in Uzbekistan is, now I'm not going also to talk about universities, but I want really to emphasize the other part, which is education for K-12, where the country so fast switched to actually providing education for elementary, middle, and high school children through television. And I think that was really amazing how fast that whole project was done and delivered. Of course, we are always looking for perfection or trying to reach that perfection. And there are a lot of lessons that we are learning and we have learned. And we all are now what I see as a positive, if we can talk about anything positive in this COVID-19, but as a positive, if you want, outcome of this pandemic is that it really did open all of us to think about other ways of the delivery of education, and also of collaborating among each other, between different faculty, between different countries, if you want. And so I will end on that positive note that as always, every crisis is a challenge and opportunity. But I think that if we are ready, and we are in education, so we are ready, I think, to take that challenge and to take that opportunity and to provide and give to our students, to our communities, to our countries, to our global society, a little bit more integrated and collaborative world. So I will end with this. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Professor Gordana. It's been really nice to hear your opinion and your insight. And I guess Dr. Riordan will continue the topic about online education as well. Can you hear us, please?
Yeah, I just unmuted myself. Yes, I can. Okay, so what I would like to continue where she left off, except that I was actually, I think, asked to address some specific questions. So I probably will go ahead and do what I'm supposed to do, but then I also want to talk about how much of an impact this has had on our lives, both in Tashkent and the United States. I'm from the United States, so I spent a lot of my time in the United States teaching, but the last 15 years of my life, I've gone all over the world and been involved in teacher education. So that's TESOL, teaching English as a second language. So we train teachers of English to go to other parts of the world and do the same thing that we're doing. So I lived in Russia for a long time, for 3 years. Lived in different parts of the world, the Middle East, the Maldives, and Europe, and all of that. But anyway, I am very happy to be doing what I'm doing here. What I've seen is a lot of growth in the last several months. And I say this in a very nice way because obviously the last 6 months of our time here have been spent mostly at home, quarantined, right? But I think there is a way to look at this in a very positive light. And I believe when I say this, I share what everyone else has shared. We don't ever leave a situation without learning something, because learning is a lifelong experience. And I believe we've learned a lot of lessons from all of this, mostly because we deal with young people, we deal with students, and they never fail to surprise me. You know, I've learned so much in the last, I would say, whatever months that we've been quarantined, since March, really. So yeah, things happened very quickly. At a moment's notice, everything went online. And whether we were prepared or not, we had to be prepared, right? So did we miss face-to-face? Yes, we did. I wouldn't, you know, I'll be honest and say that, because it was a sudden change. We were not ready for it. But on the other hand, I think everyone rose to the challenge. And I think that is the epitome of the human spirit, to be able to see something positive in every experience and to learn from that. So what I would like to do right now is, because I have committed myself to answering some of these questions that you sent me, I probably will try to do a PowerPoint, but I'm really not going to spend a lot of time on that. But I would like to share my screen for a second or two, and then maybe from there, you know, talk about some things. And this is because of who my students are and how much I've grown because of that. Okay, so if you bear with me for a second, let me just share my screen for a second and see if I can do this just right. Let me see if I can do that without share. How do I do it? Okay. I have the same problem that, hang on one second. Okay, I think, all right, can you,
Yeah,
are you
we can
able
see
to see the screen? I think it's just pulling it
it.
up.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
see it.
So, you know, obviously, because I was given some of these questions and asked to address some of them, at least some of them, I think I'll try and do that for a couple of minutes. And the reason I do want to talk about it is because obviously we were in a situation where we were involved with the MA TESOL program, 4-hour classes, and, you know, doing the traditional thing where obviously we had a lot of face-to-face contact and students loved it. So I don't want to say anything more about it because we know what face-to-face interaction is all about, encounters, right? But what I noticed and what I learned from my students more recently, once they got used to it, is that they like the fact that it's less of a time commitment. You know, they don't spend all that time traveling from different regions because, you know, from far-flung regions, because we do have students in the MA TESOL program that come from different regions of Uzbekistan. So it sometimes is a heavy time commitment, spending the night or, you know, overnight someplace and then being there for another class, you know, all those kinds of things, right? So obviously they're not doing that and they're happier in that sense. Do they miss their friends? Well, they don't have to because they can do Zoom time. So what I want to mention is that, yes, you know, our students can do it synchronously or asynchronously. I think some of you mentioned being involved in a discussion board kind of communication where they can do it whenever they want to. But on the other hand, with the MA TESOL program, I just finished teaching a 4-hour class this morning, and that was an online class, but it was a live session. So I use WebEx quite a bit, and of course, all of us use different platforms, but this one is pretty good for what I want to do. So our the thing that I want to really mention is that our students have gotten to be so tech savvy. That is the whole point. They're able to use programs they probably didn't ever think they were going to ever learn to use. So we play games, but they're actually learning how to teach vocabulary because this is a teaching English as a second language program, right? By playing games, Jeopardy.com. We use blogs, podcasts. Are they able to use Google Slides in less than 10 minutes? They can come up with a beautiful PowerPoint. So what's the advantage to all of this? The advantage is that they are able to use higher order thinking skills. And I think that's very important when you're in a higher education setting, to be able to think outside the box, to become critical thinkers. So our students are able to use a program called Animes and create a digital narrative using cartoon characters. How about that? They're able to use Padlet, you know, and communicate with each other. They're able to use a mind map using Coggle.com. The important thing is also that this offers opportunities for learner autonomy. And I think, you know, this is something they've come to appreciate. Self-access, learner autonomy, catering to different learning styles. Obviously, in a face-to-face classroom, a teacher, any teacher, can take care of that. But perhaps in a very different way, though. You can have group interaction, small group work, but the question is, are we able to do the same thing online? Yes, we can. I've sent off my students to group them or paired them, and we've had breakout sessions. Students can do all kinds of stuff. When they're home, they do. They're pretty savvy right now using Quizlet. They can take quizzes anytime. Online quizzes, just like anything else. The important thing is, you know what? I do want to mention this. Going back to this, they don't see online learning requires less of a time commitment, but it doesn't mean that they're not learning, because they can have frequent assessments. It's just online, that's the only difference. But my students are able to come up with group projects. They get involved in all kinds of activities. They can still do the same things. You know, our curriculum, yes, we had to reconceptualize our curriculum to fit the online mode, obviously, yes. But on the other hand, they are able to do their research projects in the same way. I had students going off and actually interviewing people and doing research. They had to do what's called a needs analysis. They had to come up with a curriculum. This is with the idea of teaching English for specific purposes. They were dealing with attorneys, doctors, business people. So they had to go interview people at a bank, but they did it online. A lot of it was done online. Could they transcribe their interviews? Yes, they could. So what I'm trying to say is, there's not this huge gap that we might have envisioned many years ago. I was involved in distance learning. I mean, I'm not going to say that this is entirely new to me. I've used Blackboard, I've used all of those before this ever happened, before the pandemic ever hit us, right? But that was, of course, something I did voluntarily. It was something I wanted to do. In this situation, in this scenario, they were pretty much forced into a situation where they had to, do or die kind of thing. But the question I think we all want to consider is this: have they learned something from this entire experience? And I have to say yes. They have learned probably much more than they ever thought they could. And that is important to recognize at this point. Yeah, we're all given choices. We're all in situations that we have no control over. From one perspective, that's true. We do not have control over over COVID-19. But on the other hand, what can we do to make the situation work for us, to maximize learning outcomes? So this is kind of what I want everyone to think about. What can we do to make this work? And I think most of our teachers, our MA TESOL teachers, are looking at different ways to make learning more engaging, and that is what learning is all about. More self-access, more collaboration, more critical thinking, more access to differentiated learning, and more communication between teachers and students. So obviously we're learning a lot from using a discussion board, aren't we? I mean, we might think, well, it's, asynchronous and, we're not doing it right away. But, if you combine Canvas, which of course we have all our materials out there on Canvas, and then we also use WebEx, which is live, and that's like a 4-hour session, we can maximize learning outcomes. Because not only are our students actually involved in real-time encounters, they're able to talk to us, interact with us, just like I'm doing it, I'm talking to you guys. But on the other hand, they're also able to kind of spend some time thinking about what they want to do. And I see that the discussion board, I think, is an excellent way to find out how they are able to internalize the knowledge they've gained and able to apply it. I am so surprised because we're, you know, the whole idea is to bridge the gap between theory and practice here, you know, because we're all practitioners. These people are out there teaching their own classes, but they picked up so many skills right now, and they talk to me about the skills they've acquired in just a few months. And these were people that didn't really, they kind of resisted this whole thing, you know, when are we going to have face-to-face classes? Can we please do it? Is that going to happen like 3 weeks from now? Because, you know, the quarantine has been extended from, you know, basically maybe it started out with 3 weeks, and then it got extended, and then further extended, and now, you know, all the way to August 1st. So the idea was that, of course, that, you know, when things got better, we would go back to face-to-face. But, you know, the whole point I think I would like all of us to think about is that's just a concept that we all have, that face-to-face is better because that's what we are familiar with. But you know what, looking back, all the, you know, I would have to say, yeah, maybe, you know, I belong to that school of thought at one point, but not anymore. Learning can happen, it has happened, and will happen, not necessarily in the same way, but it can happen with the same positive outcomes, perhaps in a different way. So basically, you know, really, in reality, what I want to say is, I think some others mentioned this earlier. Dr. Maritz, you know, he talked about integrated virtual learning. You know, when I lived in Iraq and I worked with the U.S. Embassy there, you know, I directed a program there. I think the only thing we ever talked about was blended learning, because obviously it was very difficult for people at the time. We didn't have the COVID then, but we had other issues. So our students took a lot of risks going through checkpoints every day. So we decided blended learning was the way to go. So they did a lot of work at home, online, and then they would come face-to-face part of the time. And it worked very well. So I can't say that I'm a stranger to any of this. I have done this before, but of course not under the same circumstances, right? The question again that we need to answer is online education working? Can we learn something from this? I am back. So what is it that we need to take away from this? What is it that we can give our children? Because this may be here to stay. This is I see this as more of a trend, because now that people are used to it, I think people will want to do it more, even if things go back to being quote unquote normal, right? This is the new normal, right? So I want to say that I've learned a lot from my students, because they are the digital natives, right? We're the immigrants. We're just a little bit older. And so we have confined ourselves to thinking a certain way. But what we need to realize is that something like this, it took COVID to maybe make us realize that learning knows no time, no space, right? It transcends time and space. Learning can happen in any environment if you choose to do it. So here's where I think our students have taken ownership of the learning process. And that's ultimately the goal of every teacher, no matter where I've been, no matter what country, what culture. I think my goal has always been to get my students to take ownership of the learning process. So self-directed learning is what I choose to do and what I want my students to learn to do. And so at this point, I feel that, yes, we're at that point. We're at that critical point we need to let go of what we knew or what we thought we knew, and maybe unlearn and realize there are fresh avenues to explore. And I think we need to keep moving in this direction. And I don't mean going back to quarantine and, you know, all of that. We want that, we cherish that. I'm not saying that, but it has to be something that we realize that we are in a good place where education is concerned, where learning is concerned. It was a steep learning curve, I have to say that, but we are in a good place right now. We picked up a lot of skills we never thought, we never dreamed we would. But from here, where do we go? That's the question. So do I have any answers to any of your questions? Is it a problem, time zone? I don't think so. Will distance learning reinforce teaching and learning approaches that we already know? I believe so. I just gave you some examples of how our students have done exactly what we've always done: collaborate, interact, even perhaps in a non-threatening manner, because for some students, shy students, face-to-face is not always the best. We draw them out, but here I have my students presenting all the time. So again, they've gained a lot of confidence, and is this something that they will cherish for the rest of their lives? Not the COVID, but the learning experiences, because we're all learning, and learning is a lifelong process. It doesn't stop. So that's kind of where I want to leave it. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to address those. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Riadon. It's been fascinating to hear your opinion and your insights. I guess we have done the speaker speech part, and now we will just, Tatiana, do you have any questions? Because we are kind of run of time and we have 10 or 15 minutes left.
I think we're already in time limit. So I think that if some of participants has the questions, let's write it in the chat box. And maybe, Bojana, what do you think? Maybe it's possible to continue this meeting on a Facebook platform to discuss all of the questions, because speakers were so inspired, gave us so many energies, so many information, and I don't think that it's a really good way to finish this meeting, to discuss all of the questions, because we are now so full of energy, and I think we need to a little bit more time to think about our questions. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. All speakers, thank you so much for taking part in this meeting. Personally, for me, it gave me a lot to think about. And as my colleague has said, we have so many questions from Facebook. And in order not to offend anyone, I guess we can just have them read down on Facebook later. It's going to be a post, and you may just write your answers, questions to that post, because we're definitely running out of time. It's passed so quickly. I just wanted to ask if anyone who is right now, maybe you can just wave your hand. You want to add something, or just briefly comment any opinion about the topic, please.
I just want to mention that I do not have a Facebook account.
Okay.
Same is true for me. I don't have a Facebook account either, but you can find me on email and Twitter and other places.
LinkedIn is fine as well. Just use LinkedIn. That's my preferred choice as well. Professional network rather than friendly network.
Yeah, exactly. I do not have Facebook also. That's why, please, on LinkedIn or email.
Email is also good.
Email's good, yes.
Yes.
Okay, then email, and let me do it once again. I sent our contacts and including the group in LinkedIn. So you can join that group, and we will continue there. We want to see your questions. We want to hear your answers, and it's very important thing to us to stay in touch with you, with all of you, because I can see in the chat box that all of us are really interested in collaboration. So let's do it on Facebook or maybe in LinkedIn. So 1 second. Yes, I get it. So I sent our contacts once again. This video will be available on YouTube on our channel, and we will send you a link by email. So you will see it, you will, you can hear it once again, maybe if you miss something. And then you will be able maybe to answer the questions.
Yes, thanks again, Tatiana. And from my part, I guess the final word should be from our publishing, OCA Magazine. Marat Ahmedjanov, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm here. 1 second. And I would like to say thank you everyone for the great contributions. I think we had representative almost 10 countries. So we have Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, United States, Pakistan, Belarus, Russia, UK. So it was really international meeting. We had up to 34 participants today, which is great for kind of expert meeting. And we're looking forward to got more meetings on educational services and beyond. We're holding OCA Zoom meetings every month. So the next one will be dedicated to architecture. We're also planning one on Caspian Sea. We're planning on politics in Central Asia. So if you're interested, please join us on every meeting OCA Magazine holds. You're also most welcome to contribute the articles. We're always looking for the good articles to publish in both online and the print version. As you know, the magazine printed quarterly, but online edition updated daily. So I would like to thank Bajen and Tatiana for doing administrations of meeting today, and looking forward to see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I guess we will just wrap it up. And once again, thank you so much. If you have any questions, please just visit our website, ocamagazine.com. And you will find all information, all contacts, how to contribute if you want to write an article, if you want to get your interview published online or in printed version. Everything is on this website. So I'll be happy to answer all your questions. And thanks again. It's been really delightful meeting. I had a lot of think about, especially in education terms. So thank you so much. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.